I've got a friend in you. I know you are so. You are my confidence. You are my closest friend. You are Hello viewers, you're welcome to another interesting episode of your favorite program, Simi and You. Today we're talking about the sex of a child, I mean the sex of a baby. How do we choose our baby sex? Is it possible? Our culture, or culture generally, and the belief in male sex over female sex is a common phenomenon in most of our cultures. One potential worry is that women might abort fetuses as an undesired, if they have an undesired sex. And countries such as China or India prize boys over girls. Even in some parts of our country, fetuses found to be female have been, they've been aborted. The question is, can we choose the sex of our baby? Every normal human cell contains 46 chromosomes. That is 23 genes. Except for the male cell and the female egg. They contain 23 chromosomes each. When the sperm fertilizes an egg, the 23 chromosomes from the father pair with the 23 chromosomes from the mother, making 46 in all. A fertilized egg contains one sex chromosome from its father and one from its mother. The sex chromosome from the mother's egg is always the same and is known as the X chromosome. But the sex chromosome from the father's sperm may be an X or a Y chromosome. To me today is Dr. Olubukola Adeshina, who is a lecturer in the Department of Obstetrics and Gynecology, University of Ibadan, and she's also a consultant gynecologist at University College Hospital, Ibadan. You're welcome to this program.
Thank you very much.
It's a very interesting topic. But my first question is, I've been talking about chromosomes. I think our viewers would be interested in knowing what do we mean by chromosomes.
Okay, thank you very much for that introduction. Chromosomes are integral parts of us. You can say that they're like the blueprint of what we are. To start with, we're all made up of tiny components that we can call cells. Now, in this cell, there's a liquid part and there's a core part of us, which we call the nucleus, because this core part. Now, in this core part, we now have this chromosome. Now, these chromosomes contain our blueprint. Are we going to be tall? Are we going to be short? Are we going to be light skinned? Are we going to be dark skinned? If we take it down even more, it contains our genes.
Okay.
Like you said earlier, and then I'm going to be male or female. Now, like you said earlier, now each cell, those tiny components that make us up, contain 46 chromosomes. When it splits to produce a gamete, it now goes down to 23.
Okay.
Now, this 23 chromosomes could all either contain what's called an X chromosome or a Y chromosome. And then again in the introduction, a woman will always produce X chromosome. That is the way God made it. But a man can produce either X or Y components, those chromosomes. Well, he doesn't have a say in that. If God says it's going to be an X or Y, then that's how it's going to be. Now, these 23 chromosomes, during the period of fertilization in the woman, come together and then again make up the 46 chromosomes, and then the baby starts developing. So it could be an X and another X, it comes together to form a female, or X and the Y chromosome coming together to form a male.
On that note, who determines the sex of the baby? The man or the woman?
Whichever chromosomes come together, X or Y. The simple explanation, we've already made, is that the woman will always produce X chromosomes. The man can produce either X or Y. And then it is whatever comes together. It's a chance. It's a chance combination. If it's XX, then you have a female. If it's XY, like I said, it's the blueprint. The blueprint of X and X is female. That's what you're going to have. The blueprint of X and Y is male. You can't have a blueprint or a drawing for a bungalow and then you go out and then you build a skyscraper. It's not going to happen.
Right.
So it's the blueprint. That's what.
So
it's a chance combination.
So the woman can determine, the man can determine. Is that what we're saying?
The man, usually.
The man usually.
Because the Y chromosome is coming from the man.
Okay. So
The women don't have Y chromosomes.
that's the point I'm going to
Yes.
say. Whatever happens, the woman brings in an X chromosome.
Yes.
And then the determination of what will happen after that comes from the man.
Whatever the man brings to the table
It's what was
is
determined.
what's going to
Either we have a
end up.
female
Yes.
or a male.
a male.
Okay. What happens in a situation where the couples have the same sex? They have the same boys, girls. What really happens there?
Well, again, every time you have the combination of the woman brings something to the table, the man brings whatever he has also to the table, like I said, it's a chance thing. Some couples have ex-women, girls all the time, and some have boys all the time, and some have boys and girls. There's very little that people, except there's some intervention that they really can do about what comes out at the end. There's very little that they can actually do.
Are there ways to influence people?
Okay. Now, since I think as long as history has been written, people have been trying to influence the sex of their babies. If you go to Chinese writings, Egyptian writings, even the Talmud, you'll see there are writings about trying to influence the sex. You have writings about, if the man lies on the right during sex, and then after sex, the woman should lie on the right side, and then when she's getting down from the bed, the right foot should touch the ground first, she's going to have a meal.
Wow.
Yes. It won't bring the French in France. There was writings about that. If you tie up the left testicle, and then it's only the right testicle that is working, you're going to have male children. So during that time, the French, rich elites in France, were actually having many castration. So for a long time, people have been trying to influence the sex of the child. Now, more recently, we've been able to determine the DNA. We can do what we call karyotyping. People can actually, before, we talk about fertility babies and all that, before you implant the baby back, some people have actually tried taking a cell, like I said, it's a component, that's what we're all made of, and they try and look at the chromosomal pattern. Okay. Is this a male or is this a female? That is one way. We call that pre-implantation diagnosis. Before you put it back at all, you can actually try and see what the sex of that child is. Now, one of the things that you also make reference to is happening in China and India, and in a lot of places actually, people during while the child is developing, they can have ultrasound diagnosis, and they have an idea: is this a male or a female child? But again, that shows up a lot of ethical and moral questions. In fact, I know sonologists, if you ask them the sex of the child, they won't tell you. Because they're not sure what you're going to do with the information. If, for example, what you're looking for is a male child, and then you're told it's a female child, you contaminate it. So some people actually feel comfortable. They won't tell you what they think that child could be. So it could also happen during, so we call that feticide.
Okay.
Some people find out the sex during pregnancy and then they terminate the pregnancy. And then some people practice infanticide. And then the child comes out, it's not the sex they want, and it has happened.
And they kill the child.
And then they kill the child. So those are ways that people talk about. Now, there are some other things that people have also talked about. But when you subject them to rigorous scientific inquiry, it doesn't stand up to scrutiny. You want to be sure that whatever you tell people, you can stand out boldly and say, oh, this works. But when you look at literature, now, for example, say when you have sex early on in the cycle, like a 4 or 5 weeks before you expect ovulation, that there will be a higher likelihood of having a male child.
Okay.
Then you have sex around the period of ovulation, the likelihood that there will be a female child is higher. And then if you have sex after, like maybe 2 or 3 days after ovulation, again, so they actually describe it as being U-shaped. So you have more males at the beginning, more females when the males go down, and then more males. So they actually describe it as being U-shaped.
Now, be serious study if you want to choose the sex of a child. Yeah, but I will have to sit on your calendar and start looking at your period, ovulation, study everything to be able to see it. Well, there's a lot to learn from this program, seriously. Because if you're looking at the sex of a child, like I said earlier, it's a big issue in some countries, in cultures of the country. But we'll come back on that. We'll just take a short break. And then we'll go and see on the streets what are the views of some of our viewers. We'll be back. Don't forget, viewers, that we're going on this short break. But Femi and You is always on Facebook. You can also follow us on Twitter. And then on the screen, well, at the end of this program, you'll see our mailbox and you'll also see our phone number. Please remember to fill that in. Thank you very much. We'll be back.
The sex of a child, that to me is beyond both the man and the woman. Because from the little small biology when I was growing up, the Y and X chromosome depends on what happens when the sperm gets in the cell and what is happening with the egg.
It's the responsibility of the man. In the sexual we have the woman has the X chromosome, like the man has the XY chromosome. If the X chromosome is being released by the man during ejaculation, which may lead to fertilization, it is possible for the baby to become a girl. And it is the man also that will release a Y chromosome that will also determine when we don't have X and Y, that will determine the sex to be a boy.
Okay, viewers, you're welcome back to your program, Femi and You. And like I said earlier, I have with me Dr. Olubukola Adesina. You're welcome back again to this program. We're talking about the sex of a baby. Very interesting. How do you choose the sex of a baby? Is it okay to go ahead and choose the sex of the baby ethically? Back to you, ma'am. What makes one sex bigger than the other?
Well, I don't think any sex is better, either male or female. Everybody, every child is to be loved, and in everybody there are huge potential. I mean, just give everybody, male or female, the opportunity and the sky is the limit. Just give them the right environment and the resources. So I don't think anything.
How does our culture come into play?
Well, as we know, a lot of cultures are not just favors the male sex. For example, a lot of people, even among European or Caucasian populations, have this thing. They want the male child, the firstborn child, to be male. And literature has shown that some people, if they have just a male child, if you ask them to stop, they're not minding to stop, they're okay. But if it's the female, then they are more likely to try and get the male. And not just because a lot of cultures also believe that. In China, when they instituted that their population policy that you could have just one child, most couples would rather have a male child than a female. But then again, like you said, that has implications. That has implications even for the population, because then we may now have more males than females. Then what happens to reproducing the population?
I mean, they will have to go to another culture to go and marry.
Yes, and I think it was happening today. That is going to go outside of the country to start marrying some other communities to be called.
I'm part of the culture where they recognize just the female. They recognize the female more. Reason being that they get more money from having girls. In other words, just like, you know, from some of our tradition here, when you have a female child and they're going to do the engagement, the family of the male will have to bring loads of gifts to you. And meanwhile, if you have a male child, that means you will have to buy all these things to take to them. I think part of our culture here in Nigeria, there's a particular area we find you also having female than male, because they believe that the female will enrich their pocket more than the male.
Yes. You have cultures like that, but I think there can be few and far between. Most cultures will want to have more males. And there are many reasons. Inheritance. The man is more likely to be able to inherit. There are cultures where the man can't inherit anything. If you have an agrarian society community, the male children are prized because they'll be able to help on the farm. And of course, even by the time the man marries, she moves out so that she's not so much a part of that family again. So those are reasons why people would rather have, so just some of the reasons, they would rather have more male than female.
I think with our culture as well, one other reason why most prefer the male is the continuity of their name.
Of the family name.
Yes, the family name. So they believe that it's, except for very few cultures where they don't inherit the names of their fathers, you know, but in that culture now.
Definitely. The family name is important, and most family
because of that, it's must have a name.
Why they want a male.
For their family.
Children, yes.
And that's very interesting. Because even if a man now does not have a male child, there's a opportunity to adopt a male child. Don't you think? Because with adoption, that child is yours from head to toe. That child inherits everything that is yours, including your name. Even though our culture does not accept adoption that much, I think we're getting to that stage now where we are looking into adoption more.
Definitely. Adoption is one of the options that we offer in fertile couples. They could continue and not have children. They could go through all these assisted techniques of reproduction, or they could also adopt. But there's a lot of stigma. There's a lot of stigmatization. Couples like that are often referred to as having birth children. Sometimes the culture, the community, the society don't accept the children. And so there's a lot of stigmatization. Of course, with more education and enlightenment, that is changing and more people are adopting. You understand? And then you also know we have this thing in the culture, if a woman is married and she doesn't have a child for that man, in the real culture, they'll tell the woman is not married. So that she must have a child. And that's why you see a 44-year-old or a 45-year-old trying to get pregnant. And then you ask her, you have 3 or 4 children, and then our response will be, oh, she just got married. Maybe she's a widow and she needs somebody to take care of her.
She got married to another
person. And so the culture is something to tie them. There's something she needs to show for being in that man's house. So that is why adoption is still a sensitive issue. Let me put it like that. But it's one that increasingly, with more education and enlightenment, it's an option.
Yeah, because that is more as another option. If you know that you can have a female or a male child, then you can as well adopt a male child, and then you can have that. Anyway,
it shows us a lot of options. It shows us a lot of questions.
What about DNA test to determine the sex of the child?
Yes. We can do DNA tests. Like I said, we can have during in vitro fertilization, all the specialized techniques of reproduction. Before you put the embryo back, you can take one of the cells and decide, is it a male? Is it carrying XY or XX karyotype. But then again, like I said, if you now find it is not the sex you want, what happens to that embryo? That's an ethical question. You can do diagnosis while the child is in the uterus. You can take some cells again and also determine the sex, the DNA, karyotype, that's what you call it. And then you also make up your mind, is it XX, is it male or female? And in fact, almost 80% or 90% in some societies, or the request for amniocentesis. Amniocentesis is what you do. You take some fluid from the baby. That was actually to determine the sex.
But you don't do amniocentesis until the baby is the pregnant about 17.
No, sometimes like 13, no, about 13, yes, about 17 weeks. And then you can also, so, but that's what I'm saying. By the time the baby is formed.
That's what I'm saying.
And that's where criticize comes in. People end up aborting this discipline. Then the other question is, it also throws up a moral dilemma for the parents. Some people can't go through with the abortion. It's the same like sometimes people tell us you have diagnosis. People you diagnose. Okay, so you find out the child is has hemoglobin excess. That is what regularly comes to mind in our environment. We find some people can will still go and say, look, they just can't bring themselves to abort the child, even though they know the result has shown them that that child.
Some will go ahead and abort because
some will go ahead, yes, some will go ahead and abort. So if you're looking for a male child and then the result comes back and tells you it's a female and you get to abort, so it's a question that one will have to answer, and that's the problem. And then of course ultrasound can also be done.
Okay.
You can determine is it female or male, and that's what you look for. There's around the groin, you look at the anatomy and you try and make up your mind, is this a male or a female child? But then like I said, some phonologists feel uncomfortable when you ask it because they're not sure what you want to do with information. So they just tell you, okay, it's okay. Sometimes they tell you suspected query, you know, because they're not sure what you want to do with the information.
You have to be careful.
Because some people will go ahead.
That's interesting. Maybe that's the reason why I threw a question to you at the early stage. That who is to blame? Is it the man? Is it the woman? Or is it just the nature? Or like people say, is it God? Is it what God determined? God decided that He's going to give you a child, whatever the sex of the child is. Maybe we should take it and we should go ahead with it and not just decide on our own what we should do. Whatever it is, we need to actually make a decision as to accepting the child, no matter the sex of the child, whether the child is a male or the child is a female. And especially in our culture, where the men blame the woman for what they think is the problem. If the woman has more of female, then yes, it's her fault. But really, looking at the chromosome study, it's not the woman's fault. It's more from the man. Or it's actually the determining factor. It's the man, not the woman. The woman is there to just produce just one, and it's the X chromosome. So it's the man that will decide whatever he wants. So I'm sure that our viewers have actually learned a lot from this today to know that you don't need to blame anybody for this. It's what the Lord God determines that you have, that you have it. And maybe we should just take it in our faith and take care of these children and not go ahead aborting because we don't want that particular thing. It's a very interesting topic, sex examination in our children or in the case of the baby. Well, I'm sure viewers you've had a nice time discussing this topic with us. You've enjoyed yourself, and Dr. Olubukola Adesina has been with us for a while discussing this very interesting topic and enlightening us. Thank you very much for coming to this show.
Thank you very much.
And thank you viewers for joining us. Don't forget to join me on Facebook, Penny and you, and write whatever you have in your mind. And if you want to contribute or you want to ask questions, please go ahead. Penny and you is on Facebook. At the same time, we have a mailbox. Please send us your mail. You can see the address on the screen as we end this program. Thank you very much. God bless.
I've got a friend in you. I know you are so. You are my confidence. You are my closest friend.